There are three things that you need to do every time you do an oil and filter change to make sure your oil and filter change is going to be successful. Number one, be sure the old gasket has been removed from the oil filter mounting base. Number two, be sure to replace the oil filler cap after adding oil. And number three, use a new oil drain bolt washer and torque the drain bolt to the specification. You always want to be sure that the old filter gasket has not been left on the mounting base. So here's a typical aftermarket oil filter. Usually you find what they call a square cut O-ring is the gasket. And so it fits in the groove, right in the filter, the spin-on filter can. But what will happen sometimes is that this gasket will come off when you remove the filter from the base, and then it ends up sticking on the base. You don't realize it. And so when you go to put the new filter on, the old gasket is still on the base. You spin the filter on. Now you've got a gasket on top of a gasket. You can tighten it down. More than likely, it's not going to leak right away. But what will happen is, especially on a cold morning, you start the engine up, RPM's fairly high, you start driving it, RPM goes up, pressure goes up, and basically it blows the gasket out. That higher oil pressure will blow the gasket out, and now you're going to dump what might be an oil pan worth of oil on the ground in 60 seconds. That's bad. So what I always do is I want to make sure that when I spin the old filter off, I use a shop towel and a flashlight if I have to. I make sure that the mounting surface is clean and that there's no old gasket there. And because if you do, you're not going to be happy. So that's number one. So number two, always make sure that you replace the oil filler cap after you've added oil. It's an easy thing to do. You can kind of get in a hurry, or if you're working somewhere where it's very repetitious, and you're doing lots of oil and filter services, you take the cap and maybe you put it up on the cowl, or maybe you put it on the radiator support, and you end up filling the oil and you forget to put this back on. The worst thing about that is if you don't put the cap back on, engine starts up, you're not going to have a leak right away, but then the customer starts driving it, ends up on the freeway. Especially with overhead cam engines, there's an awful lot of oil circulating and splashing around underneath that valve cover. It's going to start coming out that filler hole. It ends up leaking all over the engine, could leak down onto the exhaust manifold or catalytic converter, and then it's going to start smoking, and if it's a really bad day, you end up with a fire. So don't do that. So always make sure that that cap gets put on tight when you're done, and then that won't happen. So number three, always use a new oil drain bolt washer and torque the drain bolt to specifications. These are both click type torque wrenches. They make all different types, and there are lots of videos out there as far as torquing and torque wrenches. This one's a half-inch drive torque range is from 10 pounds to 150. This one's 3/8 drive torque range would be from 10 to 100. This one's Matco, and it's a couple $100. This one is Harbor Freight, and on sale you can find it for around $10. Again, there's a lot of information about torque wrenches, but I think the most important thing is that you follow the factory specification and you torque the drain bolt to the proper torque. This makes sure that it is not over tightened and you end up stripping the threads, or under tightened and the risk of it coming loose. You'll find the torque spec is for a drain bolt is usually somewhere around 18 to 20 or 22 foot-pounds, but again, check the spec. And they're all different types of drain bolt washers. This one actually is for a Nissan. It's designed to crush once you use it, and it's a one-time use washer, and then you replace it. They're not expensive. It's cheap insurance. It'll make sure that you don't have an oil leak when you're done. So again, as I said, they're all different types of drain bolt washers. I would make sure that you get the correct one for your vehicle and change it every time. I hope this helps. Thanks for watching.